I am a huge fan of TV. I always have been. I love TV. I grew up watching one of my favorite shows. And at a certain point, I started feeling like I'd absorbed so much TV from years of watching that in some way, and studies have actually shown this on a bigger scale, I almost think in TV. I reference things to other people through TV shows that both of us know. And I think that's the way our culture works. But the problem is, TV's really a one-way conversation. You're sitting there on your couch, it's telling you things. Your only choice is to switch to a different channel, really. And about 12 years ago, I got this feeling like I really wanted to say something back. And this started 12 years ago with VHS machines, 2 of them attached together. I would record a show, I would make loops of that show, and I started doing these shows. I was living in Montreal at the time with DJs, and I would do visuals of stuff I'd recorded off of TV. And the reactions were always the same and quite incredible. People would be dancing, and they'd be looking at the screen, and they'd get this look on their face like, wow. And it was like, I could never say anything to them that would get that type of reaction. It was because they already knew the material, and they were seeing it in a new way. And this is sampling, and it's been around in art in many different forms for a long time. But something to do with TV on big screens really got people excited in a way that I'd never seen before. And I really wanted to understand it in a deeper way. So what when I was doing an MA at Concordia in Media Studies, I decided to make that feeling I was trying to understand my whole master's thesis. And so I wrote it about video remixing. I started researching it, and there was absolutely no information about this stuff. A little bit of kind of academic writing about hip-hop, and that was where I worked from. And basically had the idea to take the stuff that I'd been doing in a live context and bring it into an edit suite and see what was possible using some of the techniques from hip-hop, but in a video editing suite. And so I'll show a video now that was a part of my master's thesis called Back and to the Left. And one thing, because people always ask me about it, one of the things I researched was that the JFK assassination was the most watched thing ever in the history of television. It brought so many people to one event at the same time. And an early hip-hop producer, Steve Stein, who called himself Steinsky, and he was kind of the first guy to do hip-hop in a music studio instead of just using turntables. He made a whole video influenced by, audio track influenced by the JFK assassination. So I referenced that in this.
TV as we know it is about to change. The whole nature of how we'll watch it, how we'll get our entertainment and information from it.
What's he doing now? Oh, he's playing with the medium.
And right away, your attitude is better, your attitude is lightened, and you get the, happy, I want to dance feeling in your neck to get the movement, and then you get that ting, tack, ka-tack, ting, tack, ka-tack, ting, tack, ka-tack, ting, tack, ka-tack.
And you can tell if you look at the video compression in there, it was done in the very early days of desktop video editing. And the people in the media lab at Concordia were like, what are you doing? There's a lot of that. But it finished, it was a success. I actually showed it at a student film festival in Paris. And then I had a friend who worked for Much Music, who was like, can we show it on our new American station, Much Music USA? And I was like, sure, that's cool. Then they sent me a contract, and I had to sign it, and I was reading it, and it was like, you own the rights to everything in your... And I was like, no, I don't. And I kept saying, yeah, I'll send that back to you. When is this airing? And okay, I'll get it to you. I'm quite busy. And eventually they aired it, and I hadn't signed the contract. But it made me think there's a big problem here. Like, I felt valid in making this work, and through the rules of film festivals and broadcasters, you need to have paid for all the rights to your work. Well, I've never done the math, but that would probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And even though it's looped, they charge you per second, and even if you're showing the same thing 10 times, you have to pay for it each time. So I was pretty excited in 2005 when YouTube started. I put all my work there, figuring, well, so at least people can see it. So I just want to talk now about Bill C-32 with its YouTube exception, which a lot of people, including Jeff, think they just mentioned, like, it sounds good, but I've got some issues with it. First of all, I was impressed that the Canadian government, in its old stodgy ways, was even thinking about mashups as they wrote this. I think they were like, oh, we'll be a hit with the 14-year-olds if we say the word mashup. Like, I don't know. I can't imagine how this came up. It's really strange to me, but I think there's maybe a handful of people in the country doing this type of work. But I did some research, and some really strange things came up right away. If I were to try and get samples like this in the first place, there might be digital locks on them. So if I were to try and capture this type of material, I couldn't break those digital locks. So I couldn't actually access the material in the first place before I've even edited anything without breaking the law. And I think at some point, laws can't keep up with technology. Like, as soon as this goes through, there might be broadcasters that just have to push a button and everything on TV has a digital lock on it, which would mean if it's on your PVR and it's been there for more than a week, they could erase it. Or, I mean, who knows what things they could come up with, but I wouldn't be able to get to the work. Another thing was you need to attribute your sources. So, like, what would I do there? Like, this is CBC, Milton Nash. This is, like, on the screen. Would I have credits at the end? Like, I feel like the whole point of me making it as an artist was as commentary. I don't really want to give props to everyone. And, you know, in the hip-hop world, it's like, you know, you get samples and you try and hide them because you're the one who found that sample. So it's kind of strange to, like, credit everyone, anyways, when I'm using them to make my own commentary. Another thing is your work has to be for private use, but yet you can put it on YouTube, and somehow that's private use. I don't really understand that. Maybe Martha can explain it more. One of a remix that I made with my wife, Billy Mastai, Puberty What's That? Yeah, it's got 750,000 views, and if that's private use, then I guess I'm happy. The biggest thing is you can't profit off of them, and I'll tell you one quick story afterwards, but as an artist, like, can you imagine telling a painter or writer, like, they have enough trouble, artists, making a living. Like, it's strange to be told by the government, your type of work you cannot profit from. So I think it's a valid art form, and I don't understand why they're getting involved. It's hard enough to make any money, and I can count, well, there's one time I've made money off of this video, and I'll tell you about it. The last thing is that you can't have any adverse effect on the source of where you're sampling. I don't know, I feel like that's my whole reason for making these things, is to have adverse effect. I'm not there to say, isn't it great that this is on TV? Like, they can do that themselves. It's called their advertising department. I feel like as an artist, I should be able to say whatever I want, whenever I want, and if I want to use TV to do it, then I feel like it's my right in living in a society with free speech. You can't predict the future, and they're making these laws to protect corporations, but I'll tell you one quick story if I still have time. the CBC show Zed saw this video on YouTube and got interested in it and contacted me and said, we'd like to show it. And I was thinking, well, this is funny. I taped stuff off CBC, and CBC's calling me, and they were offering me money to air it. I mean, it's not a lot of money. I think it was $150, but I was like pretty happy that this phone call even happened. Then they called me back and said, ooh, we talked to our lawyers, and I don't know if this is going to work. And I was like, yeah, I could have told you that. Then they did something which I found quite incredible, and it took about 8 or 9 months, but they decided to change their designation for one night from being an entertainment show to being a news show. In a news context, you can show anything you want. And in an entertainment show, everything has to buy the rights and it has to be all above board. But in news, you can show it and comment on it. So as long as they had me on to talk about the work, it was okay. And I was like, okay, sure. It took months and months and months, and it was all internal CBC lawyers arguing with each other to finally agree. And they agreed, amazingly, on the second last show that Zed ever put out to air this video. And they showed, they made it a whole night of video remixes and showed all kinds of amazing work. And so I got to see it on national television, and I hope somewhere Milton Nash also got to see it on national television. But yeah, that's it. I can show one more video that I did. This one was actually after Back and to the Left aired. CBC Radio 3 asked me if they would, if I would do a comment on the I think it was the 1-year anniversary of September 11th. And I had been watching a lot of TV news like the rest of the world, and I noticed there was just so much fear-mongering going on, and so I wanted to say something back about it. And actually collaborated making this video with Sarah Neufeld, who was my roommate at the time, and now is actually the violin player in Arcade Fire. So she's come a long way, and this is her amazing, the audio part of it is all her.
Information.
Maximum information.
Information.
Danger.
First, third of civil. First, third of civil.
One.
Three, eight things. 2,000. 5,000. Hundreds of thousands. 2,000. 5,000. Hundreds of thousands. 5,000. Hundreds of thousands.
3 million. 3 million. 6 to 7
Millions. Many Canadians are feeling stressed these days. Feeling tension. Many Americans are already jumpy. Stress may be unavoidable. Anxiety.
You feel like your heart is going to physically explode.
War.
Not the major danger to us. Fear is.